I think this myth that people think that they don't make money in these jobs.
But Wall Street Journal, October 2024, America's new millionaire class, plumbers and HVAC entrepreneurs,
Mm,
right?
yeah. I've met so many people who have businesses like worth over $100 million in this job. And it's kind of wild, right?
Yeah, excited. This is going to be fun.
모스트 보던 팟캐스트.
Today's guest is Ruchir Shah, founder and CEO of SkillCat.
Most modern.
I want to know why it costs so damn much to fix the plumbing.
Before we get to that, Ruchir, why do the trades matter?
Well, I think the skill trades they're responsible for everything in our world. The built world in general, it's what we live in. I mean, people really notice it when things aren't working. So roads, bridges, infrastructure, telecom, solar, wind, energy, like all of these functions are powered by the skilled trades. And so they touch pretty much every aspect of society, and every aspect of your day is just a human living in modern civilization. I think a lot of the world traditionally is split up like white collar and blue collar, and white collar is more traditional office jobs, but there's like a massive group which we call the skilled trades, sort of in between unskilled labor and knowledge jobs. So these are jobs that you need some level of specialized training, but you don't need a college degree. And you work with your hands, you're often fixing things, putting things together. I think technically you could say even things like, styling hair and all of those things are considered trades, but how we think about it at SkillCat is anything that you don't need a degree for, which requires specialized training that you need to work with your hands in some way. So construction, HVAC, plumbing, telecom, solar, wind, manufacturing, pretty wide spectrum of skills that are out there.
Traditionally, these were considered normal jobs. And now maybe that we've moved into a much more knowledge-based economy, especially in the United States, we now classify them as the skilled trades. When did that transition happen? Is that why we're getting the shortage now?
Why are you suffering? There's like three or four major trends. So one of them is mass production. When like Henry Ford and like mass production got instituted in a lot of factories, it took out a lot of the artisanship and craft out of some of these trades and tried to make them much more like blue collar, where there's not as much thinking and innovation. And so that definitely played a role very early on. A lot of government policies, all the way going back to Eisenhower, really focused on college. We wanted to prep to compete with the Soviet Union. And so there were a lot of policies around even guidance counselors when they were kind of set up for the first time at schools. It was around college, math, science, college, and then ended up cutting shop class, which is where most people learned about the trades for the first time from a lot of schools. So what you see overall is baby boomers are really, really present in the trades. But because of that, the average age in a lot of these industries is 50s, 60s, sometimes even 70s. If you look at, I think, linemen in California, I think it's like late 60s, which is like crazy.
Man, not like a nose
Utility
tackle.
linemen,
Okay.
no, not a football lineman, like utility lineman. It's crazy, crazy old. And so because shop class got removed from schools, everyone got pushed to college. You have a lot fewer young people for many years now going into the trades. This aging workforce hasn't been getting replaced. You have all these really old people, and baby boomers are retiring every single year in huge numbers, and fewer young people have been joining for a while. And so there's a huge gap, and it's starting to change. We're seeing some people moving more towards the trades today and in recent years, but there's a huge gap. A lot of infrastructure just doesn't get done. I think the U.S. is like a C minus in our infrastructure report from a few years ago compared to A plus in China, for example. You see a massive discrepancy in how we're taking care of our infrastructure, and a lot of times that's because no one's really available to do all of this work, or it's just cost prohibitive because of the shortage. You look at things like the environment. A huge portion of greenhouse gas emissions is air conditioning. And things like heat pumps are 50% or more efficient than traditional air conditioners. There just aren't enough HVAC technicians, and a lot of the HVAC techs, especially the older ones, don't have that much familiarity with heat pumps. So you see pretty direct environmental implications of the shortage. And then lastly, I'd say that a lot of the political issues we see in our country, if you look at it as a massive group of people who've been ignored largely for a while, those are people in the trades, and that's the largest group that shifted from Democrats to Republicans because a lot of those jobs, a lot of those people have not been given the support to reskill and to get into new trades as a lot of these jobs have evolved. Since the 70s, there's been like a 30% decline in real income for non-college educated men. And so these are people who work jobs in coal and manufacturing, and these jobs disappeared, right, as some of these industries declined. New jobs have emerged that still don't need a college degree and still need mechanical skills and electrical skills, but there just haven't been, the training or the support for people to get those jobs. And so, yeah, because of that, there's been a huge decline. Those people are frustrated. They haven't seen any political movement there. And so I think a lot of the big political crises you see today is that group of people. Just a lot of people just don't understand how to support that group of people.
You've started to work more with specifically with SkillCat in terms of training these people so we can increase supply of skilled tradespeople. Was there a moment in your personal life where you looked around you and saw maybe not necessarily the political ramifications, but the physical ramifications of not having enough skilled tradespeople? You talk about declining infrastructure. You lived in San Francisco and you're in New York right now. Where does this manifest in your day-to-day life?
I think politically, you see a lot of these cities like San Francisco where people have made a ton of money in tech. And so everyone shuffled into, hey, learn how to code, right? That's the go-to thing for many years now. Learn how to code, get into tech. And what you see is this disparity where some people go to college and some people make a lot of money and they raise the rent and living conditions for everyone. But then there's a whole other group of people who college is it's not a good fit for everyone. And so a lot of those people have college debt. They don't graduate, or they go to college and they aren't able to get a good job. And then they're saddled with years and years of debt. What clicked for me is realizing that one of the big causes for a lot of this is the decline of the trades in people's minds and people not pushing folks to the trades enough. So no, I think it's now that I kind of have seen the light and I'm in this business, I see it everywhere.
So how does SkillCat work and what's SkillCat's role?
I think I can start a little bit with how I got into SkillCat. So I went to Rice, and my senior year of college at Rice, I did policy research on the BP oil spill. And training was one of the biggest issues that caused that. And so I built out a company right out of college with online courses and simulations to train oil and gas workers. And so kind of a niche, interesting area, learned a lot about oil and gas. And I did that for 4 years, then went to business school. When I came out, it was COVID, and oil and gas prices were super low, and basically everyone was getting laid off. And so you had these people going from six figures, maybe living 500K, 700K a year, then going to work at grocery stores and minimum wage jobs because they just had no idea what other industries could use their skills or how to get there. And so that's kind of where the genesis of SkillCat began was, hey, how do you make it really easy for folks to get into the skill trades? And how do you make it more accessible for people like career switchers who can't afford traditional trade school, both in terms of the money involved and in terms of the time commitment to leave the workforce for multiple years to go to school full time?
Was that the original route that most people took, is you had to go to get some sort of specialized training outside of high school?
Yeah, I think apprenticeships historically, like a lot of companies had like structured apprenticeship programs. Unions used to be much stronger in most part of the countries. And trade school, there was never a good system built. And even today, we're like becoming that system slowly for reskilling. Right? So a lot of people would join a company and they're like, I'm going to work at this company my entire life. And then more recently, it was like, hey, I might not work at the same company, but I'll work in the same industry. But now you're seeing so much change. So you can't really necessarily work in the same industry your whole life. Like industries like coal are getting disrupted all over the country. They have been for some time. And so a lot of those systems. So basically what SkillCat does, and we've evolved a bit since we started, but really accessible, affordable, easy to use training and certification all online, where you get industry recognized certifications and you go through simulation based training to learn different skills that you'll use in the field. And so we've trained about 300,000 people. And so we have a ton of students who come to our platform of all ages who want to get into the trades, or they're already started in the trades, want to grow in the trades, or want to start their own company, like helping out with appliance repair or HVAC or being a mechanic. And then we also work with companies as building out apprenticeship solutions for them. So large employers like Greystar, for example, that does large multifamily apartment buildings, they have a ton of maintenance technicians. And we have a lot of HVAC contractors, plumbing contractors. And for them, we're a solution where they can easily set up apprenticeship programs, have folks go through online training on our program, and then supplement that with training in the field as they're actually working. And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to solve, making it easier for workers to get the required certifications and to get their foot in the door in these industries, and then also for companies to start offering apprenticeship programs again.
How come the digital kind of online model is what you're pursuing? Because it seems to me like if I want to learn how to fix a washing machine, I would need to like go do the thing. I'm sure I could watch a YouTube
Yeah.
video and figure it out. But can you talk to us how like the sort of training moves from, I guess, the more knowledge-based stuff to the more practical application of that training?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we started with certifications, and that's kind of been our bread and butter. There's just a lot of certifications you need and like licensure that doesn't necessarily require super hands-on skills. You got to learn a lot of regulations and rules and like concepts for troubleshooting. And so that's kind of how we got started. And so for that, it was a pretty natural fit to start online. As we've got, I mean, obviously, yeah, a lot of these things you need hands-on skills. So a lot of the individuals we work with, they'll get a lot of the stuff through us, and then they'll actually have a job. So they're working at the same time, and they get hands-on, and then they also learn through us. And same thing with the companies we work with. And we're building out an infrastructure now to try to do some more hands-on training as a component of our program in different parts of the country. But I think one thing we realized pretty early is there's a lot of trade schools out there that are very expensive and don't have anything hands-on. And so you go and you spend a lot of money, but you don't learn hands-on. And that's still enough to get your foot in the door at a lot of companies, right? So it's not an absolute requirement to still bring a lot of value. And then a lot of these people who are career switchers, right, or have these like, even in lower income settings, they don't have the bandwidth to go to school full time. And they don't have the bandwidth to be in person full time, right? So people will, like our mobile app is what's our most popular thing, not even our computer version, because folks are just not at a computer during the day. They're in and out of the field or in a minimum wage job. And so there's not much choice. So we've been like, this is the best that these people can do with the time constraints they have. Let's get them as far as they can online. And we use a lot of simulations and videos and animations to make it as close as possible to hands-on. And so simulations are like kind of interactive games where you actually go through and use a multimeter and troubleshoot and go through different scenarios. So it's not absolutely not perfect. But our thinking is if you can learn enough to get certified, to get your foot in the door at some of these companies, that's the equivalent of what all these trade schools do anyways. Yeah, it's a good question. So we've just started measuring a lot of different metrics, but like we look at like salary increase, right? So I forget the numbers, but there's things like a 30 to 40% increase on average of people graduating from the program. And some people had like a 50, 60K increase in salary. So that's really cool. So that's a big metric for us. People talk about us a lot. So there's like tradespeople are they're not shy with their feedback. So like we get a ton of feedback all the time. And so we like measure a lot of that. Like when we launched the app, we were at like 2 stars in the app and Play stores. And because people are just, I mean, if anything is not working or there are issues or they don't learn things, people share and are very aggressive about it. And so we brought that up to 4.9 stars over time. And so we're really focused on metrics like that are more quality. I think long term, our goal is we kind of provide some of the support that a union has traditionally provided a lot of people, where we give you ongoing training throughout your career as things change and evolve. We want you to stay on the platform forever. We want to keep giving you that support. So not just initially to get in, but also kind of through your first few years. And as you go on, I want to add more skills. So some of so we start at $10 a month. So really easy, accessible. A lot of the individual certifications we offer, other providers are like $200 just for that one certification. There's like an all-you-can-eat, a ton of content. We have about 1,500 hours of training, and we're growing that every day. And so I think, I mean, we have a lot of different users, but I would say like, a user I talked to, for example, recently, mid-career, worked in as a warehouse worker previously, joined SkillCat, got some certifications, got his first job, then continued using SkillCat on the job to continue using skills and refreshing it, became a maintenance technician. And then you have very little support and you need to learn almost every trade because you got to work on appliance repair, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all in someone's home. And so you learn a lot really quickly. And then they've stayed on because there's constantly more to grow and learn if you need to grow into so many different trades.
What's the ideal character profile, I guess, for a tradesperson? I think we all know people who are better with their hands than they are with other sort of we all know people who are better at doing things and like talking or typing or doing things like that. What type of person should be attracted to getting into the trades? Or for maybe someone out there who knows somebody who they think could benefit from that, what should they be
Yeah.
looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think we should start making trades the default after high school, right? And like, if you really don't like the trades, then spend 250K and, go to college. Because yes, yeah, to your point, yes, some people are good with their hands and some aren't, but a lot of that is just exposure, right? Like if as a kid, your parents you didn't see them fixing things around the house, or you didn't get a chance to get your hands dirty and try things out. Like, you probably just haven't been exposed to it, right? And so, like, I think the biggest correlation right now are people getting into the trades is if they know someone or have a family member who's already in the trades, right? But that's not how it should be, right? Because these jobs are really good, right? Like there was an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about a bunch of people fighting over recent grads from high school. They were coming up with 70K offers straight out of high school to work in the trades, and that's just starting. Right, a lot of these folks make over 100K a year. You have no college debt. The jobs are relatively AI proof, especially compared to this fresh batch of software engineers graduating college right now who can't get jobs. And people are very satisfied. Overall job satisfaction in the trades, I think, is 80-90% versus 50-60% in traditional office jobs. So people are just happier because you're actually accomplishing things. You're working with groups of people, you're outdoors, all of that. So I would almost reframe that question that everybody should give it a shot, right? And so even if you don't think you're good with your hands or you've not really thought about life like this before, these are some really great jobs, right? So go shadow or find a way to get some hands-on experience. You'll really see pretty quickly that there's like a lot of cool things about it. And just as there are so many different office jobs, there are so many different types of trades, right? A lot of them do involve using more software skills, right? You have to like control systems and so there's a ton of different variety in the trades, right? So I think that the question implies that trades is like one corner of the job market, and then there's a bunch of different white collar jobs. I would say it's almost 50-50, and like just as there's variety in white collar, there's also a lot of variety in the trades.
So what's stopping us? What's stopping, I guess, everyone from rushing to the trades?
Well, I think there's an awareness issue and there's an access issue, right? So awareness, I don't think people know. They don't know how much money you can make in these jobs. They don't know how much people enjoy them. They don't realize how AI proof they are, right? There's like a massive knowledge gap. And a lot of this is schools, right? Schools, guidance counselors, they're set up and designed for college, right? And so people just don't know or realize. And we've tried to do some things around awareness. We're doing this nonprofit we started called the Grit Foundation to get kids in these in-person camps where they learn about the trades and braze and set up things. And so there's a big awareness issue. I think most people don't know. And then access, yeah, it's not that easy. A lot of these trade schools are still expensive and it's difficult for people who are switching careers. There's still a lot of challenges out there. And a lot of companies don't have apprenticeship programs, so they prefer to try to hire experienced techs, which just isn't working anymore. So there are a lot of issues in the ecosystem. And so I just think most people don't know. I mean, I had no idea, right, before I got into this.
But Wall Street Journal, October 2024, America's new millionaire class, plumbers and HVAC entrepreneurs, right?
I've met so many people who have businesses like worth over $100 million in this job. And it's kind of wild, right? So I think you mentioned like Asian parents, right? There's like an idea that if you're actually ambitious and want to achieve a lot, the trades might not be for you. It's like a second option, option B. First of all, I think if you're not ambitious, it's an excellent option, right? Compared to a lot of college things, you can make a lot of money and you're pretty much guaranteed to always be of value in this industry, because you have a skill. But for ambitious people, I mean, I've met some of the smartest people I know who never went to college, straight out of high school, got into the trade, and eventually started their own companies, right? So it's an excellent way to start your own business, have autonomy, and make a lot of money, right? So, yeah, I think it's just, I think the awareness is starting to get there. I like that. I've been talking to that reporter, Tae-Ping, who's been writing those articles in the Wall Street Journal. And she's like, it's pretty cool, like that she's like covering these things and starting to see it almost every week in mainstream media, like the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. you're starting to see people talk about this, but yeah, there's still a huge stigma, and I think that really needs to die. And I don't like. I mean, you see in trade circles, you see all these memes, circulating where there's like person X who has like 250K in debt, makes 50K a year, looking down on person B who, is making 150K a year, has no debt. Like it's like there's just people just don't seem to get it, right? And so maybe we need a TV show. Like I was like Wolf of Wall Street made maybe unintentionally made finance seem so cool, right? Right. So maybe we need some similar movies or shows or something around the trade, some way to change public opinion on it because like it's just wrong. It's not an accurate representation.
Well, maybe we can talk more about like what are the personal benefits of working with their hands more, because I'm also thinking about people who do have a desk job but like carpentry on the side, or like to do have hobbies that are maybe trade related, and that allows them to be able to do in DIY renovations and things like that. Like what are the things that you actually get out of working with your hands, regardless of if it's for professional reasons or if it's for just personal reasons?
Yeah, one book I would really recommend. It's called Shop Class as Soulcraft. And it's by this guy who was a U Chicago philosophy PhD, and he's going to worked at a think tank, and then he realized his life felt very unfulfilling, and so he decided to become a motorcycle mechanic, and he found that incredibly stimulating, both personally and also intellectually. He found it more intellectually stimulating, like to think about how the most efficient and thoughtful way to fix something, and so. I mean, I think personal fulfillment, right, is massive in the trades because you're working with people, right? Start off, you're working with people. You have your own team. You're working with customers that you're helping. You're often working outdoors, and then you're actually completing things, right? So in so many white collar jobs, you're a cog in a machine. You don't really know how what you're doing is having an impact on the company, on society. But here, every day, you go out and you actually finish something to complete, like you do something to completion, right? You finish something, you succeed, you have that fulfillment of actually a hard day work where you did something successfully. And so I think that's sort of the biggest benefit. I mean, I shadowed recently, an HVAC tech, and I did a little bit and it felt good, right? Like you feel like you actually got something done. And I think, hobbies is great, right? So I'm glad people having that is also that's also gone down a lot, right? I think a lot fewer people tinker with their hands as a hobby, from what they used to do. And, a lot fewer homeowners even have the skills to do a lot of basic repairs. Like a lot of the requests that maintenance techs get is for like changing people's filters or even changing light bulbs. Like people have lost the ability, the desire, the appreciation for some of these things. But, I think life has to be a little hard for it to be sometimes meaningful. And these things are meaningful, like self-sufficiency. Like they're important skills to just be a well-rounded human.
This might be a good moment to ask you about something that really stuck with me when we talked in the pre-chat. You mentioned that there was an aspect of dignity of work that was really present in the trades. What is it about the trades that provides that feeling?
Yeah, I think you're actually this is why people have this 90% job satisfaction, which is unheard of, right? Because you're actually you're accomplishing something. You're doing it yourself, right? Like it's kind of like the same thing I mentioned earlier about Ford and the assembly line, how it kind of took something that was like an artisan, like, so in the Shop Class of Soulcraft book, it talks about the day after, or like the time Ford instituted the assembly line, every single worker quit because yes, their jobs became a lot more efficient and they got like more perks and they made more money as a company. But it took this task that was really like required like thought and like perfection and ownership of this entire end-to-end car. You'd have a group of a few people work together and build a car, and it made it into something like a robot would do, right? It stripped it of all the creativity and originality and satisfaction of actually completing a day's work, and it made it so singular, right? And I think in a lot of ways that same trend has also happened in the white collar office world. Right, a lot of jobs are just these narrow, like elements of like actually accomplishing and doing something meaningful. And so I think the trades are one of the last few places where they've not gone the route of complete blue collar, like, very, very basic factory work. I mean, there's a lot of high end factory jobs that are still trades, that involve like much more thinking and creativity. So they've not gone that route. They've not gone the route of office jobs, where office jobs are often also abstracted from, end impact. So like every day you're going out, you're like working on things, on real problems, and you're able to solve them, and you're able to make a customer happy. And you do that multiple times a day. And that's tremendously rewarding.
You touched on one thing, this AI moment, right? You say it's AI proof. Is it really AI proof? Like, would robots ever be able to do the type of work that you're training these people to do?
I mean, nothing is probably AI proof if you look at a long enough timeline. But compared to LLMs, right? Like LLMs and text-based like knowledge work, a lot of knowledge work is very susceptible to AI because LLMs have moved at such a rapid pace. Computer vision has not moved as quickly. Every HVAC unit, everything is so different. It's really hard. Even if you wanted to train something with computer vision, it just takes a very long time, much harder. And then robotics, at the level of dexterity you would need for a lot of these tasks, right? It's like a very you need a lot of dexterity to really get into places and do things. It's just like, it's not there yet. Does that mean this will not be there forever? I don't know. But I think in a world where it seems like more and more jobs are disappearing, or at least a lot of there's going to be less doctors needed, less lawyers needed. There's going to be less engineers needed. You can't say that yet for tradespeople. And I'm sure people are going to try, but to automate parts of those things. But there's just much harder things to automate.
And then my other question is, how does this align with other changes that are happening in society? I mean, for instance, with, let's say, green energy, or with new forms of transportation and infrastructure that's needed. It seems like the trades are an essential part of some of these evolutions that are happening elsewhere too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people, I've talked on a couple of panels about green energy, and nobody understands how much of the issue and how much of the shortage. They're like, oh, we need more workers in green energy. But most of those workers are tradespeople that they need, right? They need solar installers and solar repair technicians. They need they need those jobs. They need HVAC technicians. They need all of those jobs. So yeah, I mean, anything that's affecting the built world, you need tradespeople, right? So there's a lot of jobs out there where this is really, really critical.
Yeah, where it appears in my line of work as an architect, even in a city like San Francisco, the average age of buildings is getting higher and higher. I think it's eclipsed 100 years in New York for sure, and it's getting close to that in San Francisco, meaning these buildings are degrading. They need to be repaired. Sometimes they need to be replaced. But like you said, AI is not going to do it. The architect's not going to do it. The engineer's not going to do it. You need somebody with basically a hammer and some nails to show up and actually do these things. And I think that's where most people probably listening to this podcast actually experience the shortage, is like when you need to fix the plumbing and you call up for the estimate, you're like, it was how much?
Yeah. And this is the C- we have on our infrastructure report, right? We have an aging infrastructure all across the board, right? And if you go to like Dubai or something, right, it's a different type of problem. They don't have the same age of all the buildings and infrastructure. Right. I mean, the Empire State Building is like 100 years old now, I think, right? So like things have been around for a while. Yeah. I mean, we had our elevator go out when I was living in Austin there was a big freeze or whatever, and brutal. It took them weeks to fix it. The elevator repair technicians, they make crazy amounts of money, by the way, but there's such a huge shortage, or you just can't find someone. So no, I think we're seeing it.
And I've been training myself to walk upstairs to prepare. I live on the 15th floor, so it's been a little bit of a slog. What is the biggest myth for you that you bust?
I think this myth that people think that they don't make money in these jobs.
So let's unpack that. Let's say I'm a listener right now. I'm like, okay, tell me more. I'm interested in money. Like, what does my prospective money-making career in the trades look like?
Have you ever wondered why housing is so expensive, why traffic never improves, and why new buildings all look the same? If you're trying to make sense of how the built environment actually works and what could make it better, make sure to subscribe to Most Modern on YouTube or your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. If today's discussion resonates with you, give us a like, drop a comment, share the episode, and help us push the conversation forward.
So, I mean, depending on the trade you choose, you can easily make over 100K pretty quickly. And if you start your own company, you can make millions of dollars. And it's less competitive than starting a software company. There's a huge shortage, a huge need. It's growing like crazy. So I think no matter your level of ambition, you can achieve it in the trades. It's not only for a certain group of people. And like we need to change the stigma, right? So I think it's just really the stigma it needs to change. And I don't know, outside of just telling more and more people about this, we need to try different things to get that out there. What I do see a lot is this white collar, there's a divide, right, between tradespeople and blue collar folks and white collar, and a similar divide between the coasts, more inland areas of the country, Republicans and Democrats, right? It's really split along these lines. I think the office job, more white collar coastal group of the country would benefit a lot from getting to know tradespeople more, understanding this part of these industries more. I think it would help politically, economically. It just would just help a lot.
But would that involve more formal education? I teach in university, and a lot of higher education is under threat right now because of funding. I'm not just talking about from the White House. I'm just talking about like where are students coming from? Who's going to pay that much for a degree that, we've kind of hinted at maybe doesn't have the same ROI as if you're going to go actually become a plumber and an electrician. And so I've actually heard that a couple of these, I guess, smaller institutions, more local institutions are thinking about adding trades programs. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I talked to the head of the workforce development at NYU. So I did some teaching there earlier this year and the School of Continuing Studies. So they've thought about this. And even Galloway, I think, has given a bunch of money to Berkeley, I think UCLA. There's no reason, right, that like traditional education can't be involved in this movement, right? Ultimately, the goal is to help people better their lives, right? That's at least one of the big goals of higher education. Right? I mean, maybe research is a goal, and there are other goals, but I think one of the big goals is to help people better their lives. It doesn't need to be one versus the other. You even saw like Trump, I think, had a thing where he said, "I'm going to take the money from Harvard and give it to trade schools." It doesn't make sense for many reasons, but that was reshared among my LinkedIn network hundreds of times. Someone's paying attention to the trades, and it doesn't have to be so binary. A lot of the concepts are similar. You still need to learn like electrical, just in a different way, in a more applied way. I think it'd be really, really interesting to talk to more institutions, traditional like higher ed institutions around the trades. Well, are you unhappy? Are you unhappy with being a cog in a machine? And do you feel like you have too much debt and you have to work all the time? You're not getting a chance to work outside or work with people? Are you scared of AI? These are some really fun, interesting jobs where you can learn a lot, you can make a ton of money, and you can expand your horizons. So give it a shot. Like, hit me up. We can find a good place for you to shadow and get you a shot. So check out our website, skillcat.com. And I post a lot on LinkedIn, so you feel free to add or follow me on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions or thoughts or want to join SkillCat, feel free to email me as well. It's Ruchir, Ruchir, at skillcatapp.com.
And our last question, as we ask with every guest, is if you're looking back at our time from the future, what would you call the era that we're in?
Ooh. Such an interesting question. It's very easy to be pessimistic with all the news these days, right? But I'm traditionally an optimist. So I think we're in a period where differences between people in general have gotten wider and wider, and technology has divided us instead of bringing us together. But I think we'll see a reversal of that. I think we'll see people kind of maybe shunning technology or shunning some parts of technology more and embracing more in-person spaces, embracing people who are different. And I think we've gone too far into echo chambers and a lot of these things. I think we'll see a reversal of that. And so we'll see this time as a hitting rock bottom before things turned around. Hmm. No, of course, this was a blast.
Most modern.
Most modern.
Most modern.
Most modern. 모스트 포던 팟캐스트